Welcome to FailCraft, the podcast where we dive into the messy, real side of success and explore how setbacks become the stepping stones to growth and clarity. I'm your host, Ezekiel Eferia, and today's guest is D. Paul Fleming. Paul is a man who walks into very different worlds. On one hand, he is a disabled US Navy veteran trained in the rigid, disciplined world of the military. On the other hand, he is a Native American holy man and a storyteller trained to listen to intuition and heritage. Paul's life's motto is keep the faith, keep moving forward. That isn't just a catchy phrase, it's a survival strategy he developed after facing physical disability and life altering challenges. He is the author of Mysteries at the Windham Inn, where he uses folklore to explore history and justice. He's here to talk about the transition from soldier to storyteller, the importance of removing your ego to be of service, and how to find your voice when life tries to silence you. So, Paul, I am truly excited and honored to welcome you to the show. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today.
Well, thank you for having me on your show. Appreciate it.
Great to have you here. So, let's get things started. Paul, you have a really interesting background moving from the US Navy to becoming a writer and a spiritual figure. So I'd like to know, was that a difficult transition for you?
Well, transitioning from the military to not being in the military is not an easy transition. For many of us, it's rather arduous. I'm not going to say it was easy. It was a challenge or two.
All right. So do you have to unlearn the military mindset for you to become a storyteller?
Well, if you want to tell stories about the military, you do. But you know, I think a good storyteller is truly born by life's events, right? If you pay enough attention to what's going on around you, you can be a good storyteller because stories are never a straight line. There's all kinds of wiggle room in a story. And when you're trying to capture somebody's attention, you've got to, you know, hit on the pieces that capture their mind.
All right. All right. So you have this really interesting motto, keep the faith, keep moving forward. So as a disabled veteran, I imagine there were days where moving forward felt hard or maybe impossible. So I'd like to know, how do you handle the days when your body or your mind wants to actually quit?
Well, that would be every day, right? And I live in an awful lot of physical pain. I've got some mental health issues. So sometimes I'm amazed that my body will keep doing some of the things that it does. But just because my body or my mind or other parts want to quit doesn't mean I'm here to get things accomplished. When God tells me it's time to come home, listen, my bags are packed. I'm ready to go when He calls me. But between now and then, I've got to stay in the fight. So it's either keep busy figuring this out or lie down and die. So just keep moving forward. Don't give up. Don't surrender.
Great motto indeed. You are now an author. I like to your book Mysteries at the Windham Inn. I'd like you to just give us an overview of the book. Tell us your motivation behind writing the book and who the ideal readers are.
Well, anybody that likes mystery or the paranormal or want to learn about how ghosts interact with the living, what's on the other side of the veil, right? All that's captured in the books that I write, including the Mysteries at the Windham Inn. The Mysteries at the Windham Inn started uh, 250 years ago, almost 300 years ago now, actually, when a certain part of the United States was being settled in the northeast part, and some folks had come in from to put in roads and build a community, and There's a lot of conflict between the people that want the land and the people that want to run it and be in charge and so on. Kind of nothing different 300 years ago than we're facing today. In that, families got caught up in the political fight and the spiritual fight. Again, the fight on both sides of the veil, right? The good side and the dark side. And this family, which included the cornerstone of this story, which is a gal named Elizabeth Shaw. Well, she was hanged not once, but twice. And the second time she was hanged, her father was within musket shot of reaching the gallows before the noose stopped twitching. So he had to witness this from a distance, and in his pocket was a pardon from the governor, exonerating the young girl and ordering the townfolk not to carry out their execution. Again, father got there just a little bit too late. And in her dying words and in his agony, they cursed the land and, in particular, the property where the Windham Inn sits, as well as the people that caused this hanging. They accused her of being a witch, and this was 40, 50 years after the Salem witch trials had kind of run its course, so they couldn't burn witches at the stake anymore. So they hung her. And that still ripples through the streets and the hollers of this part of the world to this day. Police reports continue to be filed about seeing a disheveled woman on the side of the road or in a cornfield or peeking in people's windows. So it's a pretty interesting story of good versus evil.
All right. So, Paul, many people say they want to write a book, but they actually never finish it. I'd like to know, did your military discipline help you actually sit down and get the work done, or is your creative process more spontaneous?
So my time in the military helped me with all aspects of my life. I mean, the military, for me at least, teaches you or reaffirms your belief not to quit, not to give up. It doesn't mean you don't stumble and fall and put things down and walk away from them, come back and pick them up. But there's a huge difference between outright quitting and giving it some time, if you will. So everything about the military kind of serves me in this life, one way or another, post-military. But as for writing, my call to writing is from God. He's the one that's behind the stories that I write. And again, this isn't the only book I've written. I've written a number of them. But I do it because I'm divinely inspired to tell these stories.
All right, all right. So, you use a phrase I love, describing yourself as a hollow bone. To me, that sounds like a lesson in humility. Getting your own ego out of the way so you can be useful. So, I'd like to know, in your own opinion, is that the secret to being a good leader or writer? Just getting out of your own way.
Well, I think that's a great point. I think you make a great point, right? Getting out of your own way. So, yeah, you got to get out of your own way and just do it. If you want to tell a story, if you want to write a book, a novel, you just got to sit down and do it. And every time you do, you'll learn things. You'll agree with some of the things you write, and you'll disagree with others. Okay, but that's what editing's for. Right? So you write your story, and then go back and just keep working on it until you've got it to where you want it. Again, it's about persistence and intent. If your intent is to tell a story, and you may not think you're good enough at it, then ask God for help. Ask him to send you storytellers, send you folks who know how to write a novel. And then, kind of have faith that what you're hearing and what you're being led to write is meant to be, and stop second guessing yourself.
All right. So for the listener right now who is feeling stuck, maybe they are dealing with a physical setback or a career change that they feel like they've lost their purpose. So what's the first step to finding a new mission?
You've never lost your purpose. Sometimes you have to refocus your purpose, but your purpose is never lost. It's always out in front of you, whether you like it or you don't like it, whether you know it or you don't know it. Your purpose is always out in front of you. And if you don't have faith, then you can't accept what I'm saying. You have to have faith to believe that your purpose is constantly out in front of you. So in the physical body and in your mind, you're having arguments with yourself. You're debating with yourself, right? But you're never debating with God. So spend more time talking to God on what it is you're supposed to be doing and how you're supposed to do it. But the mistake people make is they think God's going to give you all the answers. He's not. You got to figure it out. You got to do the work. I say this to people all the time. You can do what I do, but you have to do the work. And that means you have to put a lot of time and effort into it. Everything's about merit based. So if you want to be a novelist, you have to sit down and write a book. Doesn't mean your first book's going to do great. Doesn't mean your 10th book's going to be great. But if you stay at it and stay at it and stay at it, you'll do well. Tom Clancy is an example. If anybody's ever seen the movie The Hunt for Red October, that movie is based on a book by Tom Clancy. And if you look on the wall over there, you can actually see the submarine, USS Dallas, that Tom Clancy wrote his story about, The Hunt for Red October. Well, I served on that boat. So it's amazing how small the world is. And when I was serving in the Navy, I never in my wildest dreams thought I would be a novelist. Never thought it was in the equations, right? But, what I thought was my purpose kept changing. So I had to learn to adjust, to adapt to what I can't see that I have to allow faith guide me with. And I ended up being a novelist. Now, when I look back, I read Tom Clancy's book when I was in the Navy on the boat he was writing about. I mean, that's crazy stuff. Now I'm sitting here talking to folks like you about novels that I've written. So our purpose is always in front of us, but more times than not, we just don't fully understand what it is. That goes back to understanding how to have faith.
All right. That was a really great response. Very
Well, thank you.
interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I worked hard on it. I stayed up all night last night practicing that one for you.
Okay. Really great perspective you put things into the indeed. So I have a personal one for you, Paul. After serving your country, navigating disability, and now serving your community through the stories and healing, I'd like to know, what does being successful truly mean to you at this point in your life?
What does successful mean to me? I don't have an answer. I guess I don't focus on success. I just focus on the pieces and the parts that I'm supposed to be doing. And if I do them well enough, then I would imagine that would be considered success, right? But we learn little from our successes. And let me prove that to you, Ezekiel. Name 3 things that you, and I want your listeners to do the same thing. So if you're a listener and I ask this question, pause this interview for just a moment and think about the question. You ready? Ezekiel, name 3 things you have learned from success. And you, the listeners out there, guys, do the same thing. Pause this recording and put together the top 3 things you've learned from success. Now, remember, this is a timed event. Okay. You don't get to go spend an hour trying to figure it out. Just like Ezekiel, you're on the spot. So, Ezekiel, name to me the 3 top things you've learned from success.
Okay. Putting me on the spot right now, I just try to think about a few, but the first thing that comes to my mind is that I've actually learned more from my past failures and setbacks than from any success.
Nope. Name 3 things that you've learned from success.
All right. Actually, none comes to mind immediately.
None comes to mind.
Yeah.
Well, isn't that a wild kick in the ass? Now name 3 things that you've learned from failure.
Well, I learned to not make the same mistakes over again. I learned to be a better person. I just learned to generally accept the moment and just try to flow with it rather than see the negativity in every setback.
So why was it so easy for you, Ezekiel, to rattle off 3 things? And I bet you could have kept going on what you've learned from failure compared to what you've learned from success. Why was it so easy?
Really? I don't really know why exactly, but when we become successful, we just like to enjoy the moment. I don't think people really like to draw lessons from success. Speaking of myself personally, but the failures, we do not want to repeat them. So maybe that's why we actually get some lessons from them.
So how does God teach us lessons?
How does God teach us lessons? Through failures?
We remember our failures, but we very rarely remember our successes. You don't hear anybody say to you, you have to keep running through the end zone, okay, if you
Mm-hmm,
want to succeed, right?
mm-hmm.
You don't hear anybody say, if you want to fail, keep running through the end zone. They tell us if we want to succeed, we have to keep going. But if we want to fail, what do we do? Stop? How does it work? Well, failure is the way to learn lessons. So for all you folks out there that did this little task, write down the 3 things that failure taught you and the 3 things that success taught you, and then stare at it. When people tell me about their successes in life, I don't tend to listen. Do you know why? Because when people talk about their successes, it didn't teach them any lessons. When they tell you about their failures, listen up, people, because failures will teach you how to succeed. You never heard anybody say, I succeeded on the first time and that's it, I'm done. I win. No, you hear them say, it took me 50 tries to get this thing right. So you had to fail 49 times to get it the 50th right. So your question was, what do I consider successful? I really don't, because I don't spend any time thinking about success. And when you do things and you reach a goal, you publish another book, right? That's a success, right? But what do you do? What do you do? You publish your novel. Okay, now what? Now what do you do? Sit back and what? You can't. You've got to keep moving. Hence, you got to run through the end zone to have success. So what does that mean? That means you have to keep moving. What? Did I just circle all the way back to one of the questions you asked me at the beginning? Keep the faith, keep moving forward. Holy cow, this guy Deep almost sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
All right, all right. Another great response again, of course, Paul. So,
Yeah, I stayed up all night. Ezekiel stayed up all night, ready for getting prepared for your interview because that's how much you mean to me, young man.
indeed, indeed. So, finally, Paul, for our listeners who want to go check out your books, read your books, or connect with you, so where is the best place for them to go?
Amazon's the best place. It's easy. Just get them off Amazon. But if you want to know how to contact me, they can reach out to you. Watch your podcast and contact you.
All right, all right. Thank you very much, Paul. It's been a really great time having a conversation with you, and I'm very honored to have you on the show today. Thank you for taking the time.
Pleasure was mine, Ezekiel. Pleasure was mine.